All right. Welcome everybody to our Gain/Civicore office hours. We'll go ahead and get started. I think we can go ahead and skip quick introductions at this point because we've already done the office hours, so I don't think we need introductions every time. But just for future reference, I am Becky. I'm one of the JBBS program managers. Also joining from the BHA, we do have Kelly, Alex, and Michelle. If there are any questions about who they are, who we are, please stick it in the chat and we can then answer those questions. But we're going to go ahead and get rocking because we don't have a ton of time and I want to make sure we get all questions answered. Before we do answer questions, we would like to start with a quick presentation from Alex. We've had some of the same questions pop up regarding Civicore. So we're going to go ahead and start with Civicore this time around. We've got some questions popped up, like I said, that have been relatively similar or the same. And Alex is going to go over a quick tutorial that he's going to present about Civicore and see if we can kind of prematurely answer some questions that may come up throughout this meeting and that we've gotten emails about. As we've said, we are recording this session so we can go ahead and post it on the website for folks for future reference and for folks that cannot be here. So on that note, I will go ahead and pass it on to Alex. And I will talk with Jackie, Alex, on the other end since she can't hear the conversation. So go ahead, Alex. It's all yours.
All right. Thanks so much, Becky. I really appreciate it. Thanks for everybody for showing up today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can get started. Obviously we made some of these changes to Civicore, and one of the things that we wanted to underscore for you was that we made these changes based on feedback from the jails. Certain situations that were coming up that didn't make sense, or it took too much time or whatever. So we tried to reduce this, and really the end goal was to make this easier for all of you. So I'm going to go in here, going to go in my test client, right? And I just want to point out, right, that like this notes section down here at the bottom, if you edit this notes section is always a good place to just keep information, any kind of information that you think that would be useful, because as soon as you click on a client, that note is going to be right there on the front page, okay? But the big change is here when you come into client status and you add a new referral, this is going to look different from what a lot of you are used to, okay? And so what you have to do, right, it's really simple, right? You enter the referral date and the booking date. Is the client eligible for services? If they're not eligible, you click no, you click submit, and you're done. That's it, right? That's only a few cases, but we wanted to make sure before, if somebody was ineligible, you had to fill out all the rest of the information, like the diagnosis, which didn't make sense. Why would you fill out a diagnosis and the gain information if they're not eligible for JBBS services? So we changed this so that you have to click yes, they're eligible. Now you're going to get another question. Did they decline participation in JBBS, yes or no? So if you click yes, they decline participation, you don't have to do anything else. You click submit, and now the system's going to read, hey, this person was eligible, but they declined, right? Now, on the other hand, if they didn't decline, then you click no. And this is what you're used to seeing, right, with everything else, right? It pops everything else up here. So and a lot of people were kind of confused about this because this doesn't look like it did before, right? All you have to do is enter these prompts. Yes, they're eligible. No, they didn't decline. And now you're going to get all this other information, okay? One of the changes that we did make is we made admission date required. All right, so just so that you know and it's clear, when you enter an admission date, that's when a client goes from referred to admitted to the JBBS program, okay? So right now there's over 1,400 open referrals in the system, and that's because we didn't have admission date required before. So the idea is if they're admitted to the program, right, you need to put in a date there, and now the system will track them as being admitted. The only people that are referred but not admitted should be those that are ineligible and those that declined participation. So going forward, there shouldn't be any open referrals. There should only be 4 types of JBBS clients: referred but ineligible, referred but declined, referred and admitted and currently active, and referred, admitted, and discharged. Those are the only 4 types of clients that we should see in the system going forward. Okay, so that helps kind of reduce some of that confusion. And if you all could take a look back through your systems for open referrals and close those out by either putting in an admission date and a discharge date, Or if they're in there and they're a referral, but they decline services, then just click decline and submit it. Now it'll show up in the system as declined services. Or if they were referred but ineligible, click they're ineligible and then submit it, and that'll close their file out as ineligible. Okay, so those are some of the big ones. I wanted to highlight this as well. So for discharge, was client discharged from JBBS services? You have to click yes to get this discharge box to pop up. If you click no, this would be somebody who's admitted, right? But they haven't been discharged yet. So if you want to discharge somebody, you have to click yes, and that pops open this discharge box. Then you put in the service discharge date, the type, successful or unsuccessful. If it's successful, you don't have to do anything else. If it's unsuccessful, it's going to ask you for the reason for that unsuccessful discharge. Disengaged in jail, in-house disciplinary action. If you choose either of those, it'll end right there. If you go other, it's going to pop up one more box and it's going to say, if it's other, please specify. Now, again, this is a really rare occurrence. People are not unsuccessfully discharged for some other reason very often, but this accounts for kind of every eventuality. So for those of you that were, well, how do I get a client discharged? You literally have to click yes, right? If you're like, how do I put in a discharge date? You have to click yes on where they discharged. Then it'll open up this box and you can put in the discharge date and this other information, okay? The tracking information down here is going to be always available to you. So the tracking generally shouldn't start until they're discharged, right? But if you need that tracking to start earlier, it's down here. You don't have to click, see when I click discharge, it doesn't change anything with the transition tracking status down at the bottom, right? So if I say, no, they're not discharged from jail, but I want to track them for whatever reason, that information is still down here, okay? The other question that we're getting is for old referrals, right? So if you have some, so what I just showed you is when you click add new referral. So that should be everybody coming into the jail starting last week, basically. But what if you have somebody that's been in the jail for 6 months and you need to update a referral? Well, this one I have is from 2019. So I'm going to click update. Now you see here, it looks just like that other screen did, but it's the same exact process as before. It's just a new, you just have to click the prompt. So is client eligible? Yes. Did they decline participation? No. Now everything else, and it doesn't delete anything. You see the screening date here from 2020, admission date from 2020. None of that information went away. Same thing with the tracking status down here at the bottom. It's still all there. You just have to click on these prompts, because if you don't, right, then it goes away. So before, the reason that this declined button is here is because before the question was slightly different. So all you have to do to get all that information that I just showed you is say client decline participation, no. It'll change that in the system. It'll open up everything else, and all that prior data that you, if you need to look it up for whatever reason, the tracking status, all that is still preserved in the system. You just have to follow these prompts in order for it to show up, because if not, it's just going to stay on this screen, right? So you got to click yes, and then decline participation, no, and that opens up everything else, okay? So yeah, just as a reminder, the admission date is now required. And again, that's so that we don't have a bunch of open referrals in the system anymore. We want to get those referrals closed, and we want somebody to be categorized as either ineligible, declined, admitted, or discharged. Those are the 4 categories that we're really looking at. The only other thing that I wanted to comment on, then I'll open up for questions, is so the gain, right? We're running reports on the gain assessment right now. And there are quite a few jails that don't have very many gain assessments in the system. And I think for some of those jails, that's okay. But for some of you, it's because you're doing the paper gains right now. Just make sure that those paper gains get in the system within 10 to 14 days. So the idea is the gain assessment should be administered within 15 days. And if you're doing a paper copy, you got to get that in the digital system within 10 to 14 days. So basically within a month, it should all be in the system. So when I check next month about those gain reports, I would hope to see some higher numbers in a lot of places, just because, again, there's a lag. We're picking up a new system. It's a new assessment, all that stuff. But we want to start catching up. What we don't want to get to the point is where we're 2 or 3 months out and you have a 2-month backlog of paper gains to put in there, right? So if you need help with that, if you need suggestions, if there's any kind of strategizing that we can do, let us know via email. We can kind of meet with you. We're checking those gains and who's submitting them and how many are coming in per county. And that's part of our deliverables. So just make sure if you're collecting all these gainers are just stacking up on somebody's desk somewhere, don't let that happen, because it's going to become a big burden when you do have to get all them in. So, if you do a couple at a time every day or something like that to get caught up, hopefully within a month, we get to the point where you can administer a gain and then it's in the system pretty shortly thereafter. So that's all I really had to go off right now. I'll open it up for questions from anybody.
Alex, there was a question in the chat. What is the difference between the client declined participation in JBBS and no? In JBBS, or no versus participate? I'm not sure I 100% understand, but if
Bobby, you can go ahead and ask that if you wouldn't mind.
I got it. I know what you're talking about, right?
Okay.
So let me show you. So this is an old client status referral, right? And these came from back in the day. So back in the day, the choice was not yes or no. The choice was declined or participated, right? So all you have to do is change that from yes or no. So if they declined, you change it from declined to yes, they declined. That's all. That's all you have to do. Now, if they didn't decline and you want the rest of that info, you change it to no, and it'll open everything up. So it's changing that old question that asked that the answers were declined or participated, and it's forcing you to now choose yes or no. So there's no real difference. It's just this is how it used to be done, declined or participated, versus how it's done now, which is yes or no. So again, if they declined, then you say, yeah, they declined, and you just click submit. You don't need anything else, right? So this will go away in the future, right? Anything starting now won't have that option. This declined, and for some of you, it shows up as participated. Basically, depending on how you answered the question in the past, that option is going to show up here. But going forward, you don't need that. All you have to do is say, yes, they declined, submit, or no, they didn't decline. Now you have access to all that previous information, including the tracking information. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. It was just weird to see it say yes or no and then declined or participated. And you're like, well, the question's a little bit weird on the receiving end over here. Client declined participation in JBBS. No, participated. And you're like, okay, the participated button is already marked.
Right, totally. And that's because that question was worded differently in the past.
Okay.
I think the question in the past was like, did they decline or participate? And then the two options were declined or participated. Yeah. We changed the wording of that. And with that, the yes, no question, the yes, no answer now come up. And that doesn't quite match what we had before.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Yeah. Torrance, go ahead.
Yeah. So I just walked through what you just showed us and went back into my Civicore and went through, because when I went back to do status updates, everybody that I was trying to update their tracking information got switched to referred instead of discharged and doing the tracking. So I just went into all my referred to start, updating their tracking stuff, and all their screening date, admission date, diagnoses, everything is blank. It's all gone.
Can you show me what you're looking at? All I have to go off is what I see. And when I discuss things with the Civicore, they said that shouldn't happen. So I'm not sure what's going on your end.
Yeah, my page just looks exactly like yours, only these are clients that have been through the entire system. Even have past, 1 month updated in treatment, all that stuff. Now it's just all gone.
Okay, can you share your screen so I can see it?
I mean, that's going to be showing sensitive client data.
Okay, well then we'll have to hold off, because I don't understand why that's happening. It shouldn't have disappeared unless you clicked the wrong button somewhere.
Hey, Torrance, could you do me a favor? I am going to send you an email. I'm going to send you an email, and it's going to be encrypted. Okay. And let's see. Can you send us a screenshot of what you're seeing? Just reply to that email and send a screenshot of what you're seeing. And I'm going to add Alex on here, and that way we can see if we can tackle that one.
Okay.
Cool. I'm going to send that to you right now. Since it'll have PHI on there, it'll be encrypted, so it'll be safe to send a screenshot with any PHI. So go ahead and just reply to this email that I'm sending.
I mean, that's still breaking confidentiality of really, but
Well, it shouldn't be, because we can
Yeah.
see that data anyway. We can get into
Right.
Civicore and we can see that data. So breaking confidentiality, as long as that email is encrypted, and the email is encrypted, it goes through our encrypted software, all that good stuff. So it's not breaking confidentiality. It's following all PHI rules. So you should be good to go ahead and reply to that email.
all right. I mean, it looks the exact same. It says, yes, they're eligible for services. No, they did not decline. The drop down comes down and it's all blank. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and I don't know, like, again, I worked with the guy at Civicore and he said that shouldn't have happened. So there might be something going on specifically with your system. So I just need to get, I just need to get eyes on it. That, or you and I can meet separately.
That's fine.
Yeah. So why don't you send me an email and we'll set it up. And we're probably going to have to rope in the representative from Civicore, because I don't know what's going on there.
Sounds good.
Okay.
I'm just
Jack,
gonna
I think you were next with your question.
Hi, I'm just wondering, how can we update a game document once we've entered it into the system? I failed to enter the staff only on several of mine and hit the finish too soon. How do I go back and just finish those last 2 pages?
That is a good question. There's no edit button.
Well, I thought there was, but I'm not finding it. I tried and it wouldn't allow me to get back into it. But I may not know the system well enough to figure it out.
Okay. So then this is for the gain assessment specifically, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm not sure. I'm going to reach out to Gain, to the representatives from Chestnut, and we're going to get a how-to guide from them on how to edit. It might be that you have to do a new one. So you save the information from whatever you have, enter a new one, finish out that last couple of pieces, and then delete the old one. That might be how it has to work. But just hold off. I'll get an answer from Chestnut, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah,
Michelle, go ahead and go next.
Sorry, I just wanted to echo, my screen on Civicore is exactly the same as Torrance's. As far as like, I went in to update tracking data. Before I did that, status was discharged. And then when I opened them up to update them, it changed them to referred and all the data disappeared. So like the discharge dates, this LSI screens, like all the information that had been entered on these clients just went away.
Okay.
And it did that with everybody that I tried to update that day.
Okay. So you answered the, is client eligible? You said yes. Are they, declined? You said no. And then everything else just went away.
Yep.
Did you answer yes for was client discharged from JBBS services?
Well, I didn't even go any further because all of it, all the data disappeared. So like, and then, yeah, if you hit yes, then but I just opened up a new one right now as we've been talking, and their data didn't disappear.
Okay.
So there's some kind of glitch that must have happened earlier in the week, because I just opened up a different client that has been discharged. And when I hit yes from discharge, then their discharge stuff is all there.
How about their tracking status? Is their tracking status still there?
Yes.
Okay.
I
That's
don't know what
So
happened
I'm not
earlier in the
sure.
week.
I don't know either. I will talk to the Civicore people, but as far as I know, that should not have been the case. So we'll have to dig in further behind the scenes to kind of see what's going on. Yeah. Because again, this is not our system. This is we contract with a company. We have to work with the company to figure out some of these things, right? So they might be doing something that we didn't know about. I doubt it, but we're going to have to ask them about what that situation looks like. Okay.
Olivia, did you want to go next? Okay. Are there any other questions?
Sorry, I was muted. I'm sorry.
It's okay. We all do that. No big deal.
I haven't done any of my gain assessments on paper. I've only done them online. I guess my question was, there was something mentioned that somebody had to like sign off on all of those assessments, like the commander of the jail or something, and that's what I wasn't clear on.
I don't know, Becky, Kelly, do you want to?
Something, yeah, that would be something that you would need to discuss internally. That's not something that we would do on our end.
No, my question is how they sign off, because I've like already completed them. How do they go into the system and sign off, like with like the gain assessment?
We would have to ask the gain people that, because we don't require that for us.
Oh, you don't?
So,
No.
Sorry, I thought that it was
Yeah.
a requirement. I was in a different meeting and I thought they said that it was a requirement. Okay, great. Then we're good.
No, as long as you have
Yeah,
the
Olivia-
authorization to enter those into the system, then you shouldn't need any sign off, right? Like
Okay.
that's your sign off, is your authorization to enter it into the system.
Cool. That's
Yeah.
what we were unclear on. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So it's nobody who's approved should not have, anybody who's not approved or signed off on, no, none of those people should have access to the gain system. Right. Okay. That's how we'll secure it. Yeah. Yeah. Sarah.
So I have the same problem as Michelle regarding the discharge people and going into tracking. And in fact, I had one person pop up on my home screen that says that I needed to take care of the tracking on that. And when I just went in now to try to do it, thinking that maybe it was a glitch, but no, my screen is still doing the same thing. It asks if they've, completed services, blah, blah, blah. But once you enter that, it still doesn't have the bottom little area that says tracking, for the 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, 12 months. That's all gone. So I don't know where any of that data went, but I am having trouble with that. And other inmates that had discharged already as well, as far as tracking goes. So if you guys decide to have like a powwow all together, how to figure that out, count me in.
Okay, great. So when it says did patient decline services, and what are the options there when it says that?
Okay, I'm looking right at now. It says, is client eligible for services? And you can click yes or no. And then one box underneath, and I'm in the referral box that was the original box that normally had like the LSIR, it had
Right.
all the way down, and it only has clinical episode section and discharge.
Okay, so there's the eligible question, and then there's the client declined. What are the options for client declined?
Yes, no, participated.
Okay, and which one is clicked right now?
Participated.
Okay, click on yes, click on no instead of participated.
Ah, there it all is.
Yeah, okay, so that's what I'm trying to say. The old version had participated or declined. To access this new information, you have to change that from participated to yes or no. And really, to get that information, you have to change it to no. So if it goes from participated to no. And once you do that, then it'll pop everything up.
Then I'm wondering why we even have participated there.
Because the system, we couldn't delete the old question. We had to keep the old question and change it, because if we deleted that old question, we would lose all of the data from the last 12 years.
Okay.
And we could not lose that data. So we had to change the question. And when we changed the question, the logic of the question changed, and now it has to be yes or no. So you have to change it from participated or declined to no, and that should open up everything else, including the tracking.
Got it.
Yeah. Okay. Michelle.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. Michelle, go ahead.
I just want to be clear, the stuff that I was saying, I did all that. Like I hit no, like I went through all of it, and I still have like, I don't know, like a dozen people that their data just disappeared. So even like when you hit no, like, and then you hit yes, they were discharged. Like, so you click through all the stuff, like their stuff is just gone, and I don't know why.
I would guarantee it's not gone. It's in there somewhere. We just can't find it. We have to work with the logic of the system to find it. So we have to, again, I'm going to have to work with Civicore to get those answers. If anything, we might have to have a meeting with you and me and Civicore and Kelly and Becky and sit down and go through this, because that, I want to be really clear, that should not be happening. And I don't know why it's happening, right? I apologize. I'm sorry for that inconvenience, but I certainly did not decide to make it that way, right? Does that make sense? Yeah.
I just wanted to be clear that it wasn't user error on this thing that I brought up. Like, it wasn't like I didn't hit no. Like, I hit no, and then and then I hit discharge. Like, I know that it won't prompt, they won't auto-populate the rest of the stuff unless you hit certain things. But even after doing that, like, that was just like, what just happened? And
Right.
it moved their status from discharged to referred automatically, and it's still that because the discharge dates are gone, and I haven't gone back to like look everybody up to find out, you know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna have to dig through files to find out these discharge dates.
I guarantee you that information is not gone. We're just gonna have to table that and figure that out. So I'll reach out to them. I'll make sure I email you. I'll email Torrance because it sounds like that's a similar issue he's having. So, and we'll bring you in and we can sit down and have a powwow about that. But right now I can't do anything about it. All I know is that wasn't supposed to happen. So I'm sorry that happened to you for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we could solve it for some other people because again, it's really important that we follow the logic of the new form, which is it's not declined or participated. It has to be yes or no, right? And then you have to select a discharge date. If somebody was discharged, you have to say, was this person discharged? You have to click yes, right? You have to follow the same logic that was on the old form. When you follow that logic, that will open up everything else afterwards, okay? So, and you said it was working for you for other people, right? It's just you have a dozen or so. Okay, so just, that means that something's working right. So we'll table this other issue for now, and we'll come back to it and make sure we get it solved for you, okay? Cool. All right, unknown.
The next question in the chat was for someone with unknown. We need you to identify who you are and what is your question.
Unknown.
I don't know. I might be unknown. This is Chris from Jeffco.
Chris, you are unknown, yeah.
Oh, sorry. I didn't realize
Okay.
that. So I had a gain question. On the staff use section, we've been doing everything self-administered. And there are a couple of questions that ask about the test-taking environment and about the observed behaviors from your participants. And if they're doing it self-administered, we obviously don't know the answers to those questions. So how would you prefer that we answer that?
Just whatever the not NA answer is, not applicable, or
Like I think it says don't know, DK.
Don't know is fine then, yeah.
So you'd rather do that than leave it blank?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, my understanding, and Alex, you can confirm this, but we really don't want things left blank. We've tried to restructure the questions to where there's at least a yes, no, unknown, some kind of answer. Please do not leave anything blank because that just doesn't, it messes up the whole way that the data is pulled.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Next question, Ashley.
Hey, are you guys able to hear me?
Yep.
We are.
Awesome. I do not want to take up any time on the issues of Civicore. So I raised my hand just to share that I was having the same experience too in terms of like losing data, but it sounds like we're gonna table that and come back to that after we potentially pull Civicore in.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And then I guess I do have a gain question.
Yeah, go for it.
For those, so for the for having individuals self-administer, how are you printing that off? Are you printing it off the website, or how do you
get a paper copy?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you should. Kelly, did you send out a paper copy to everybody?
We have sent that out. If you didn't get it, Ashley, I'll resend it.
Thank you. I think I only have the Spanish version.
Okay.
I do have I have the cards, or the
cards would have been in the same. That would have been in the same email.
Okay, don't resend. I'll check, and if I absolutely can't find it, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Oh no, you're good. Thank you.
Okay.
Bobby.
Bobby.
Hello. I just wanted to see if there was a way to put out to everybody when major changes are going to be made, or what the changes are if they're like not aligned with our gain meetings like this. Only because since we didn't know that information, things were stuck on participated. We had to go back in quite a few programs because we thought it was locked up. Basically, that you guys were probably out in the back end working on it, and we couldn't do anything for the time.
Yeah, so I will say this, right? It happened when we were talking about those changes, they happened very quickly, and we didn't, we sent the guidance out last week. I sent an email out, what was it, August 1st, with the monthly contract monitoring tool with the updated guidance. And that was 1 or 2 days after they made that change. And again, the way that it rolled out was not exactly how we were expecting it to roll out. And so that was a kind of, even it looks like a big change, even though in the system, it's on the back end, it's actually a small change. But for the front end, for the users, it's very different. We didn't realize that it was going to be such a mismatch from what your usual experience was, right? So that's kind of my fault. I'll take responsibility for that. But yeah, absolutely. We're not trying to make changes and not tell you about them, right? That was just a kind of miscommunication between Civicore, us, and you. But yeah, going forward, we'll make sure that we try and get things out day of, if not before. It's just hard, to line everything up perfectly, right? So
Totally understand. Thank you.
yep, of course.
Erin, you're up next.
Yeah, I just have a game question. So when I'm doing the data entry, it's on like when the question section is longer, like the school history, like do you have GED, diploma, and it's asking a whole bunch of questions on that one page. Every time I enter an answer, a 0 or a 1, my whole entire page will jump to the very top, and I'll have to scroll back down to go to the next question. And so that's kind of making it a pain. I didn't know if maybe it was a me problem on my end, like I'm using a browser that I should be using something different, or if anyone else was having that issue.
That's a good question. Okay, so it looks like Jackie's having that issue. Is anybody else having the same problem that Erin's talking about? All right, so it seems like it might be an isolated thing. So Erin, what browser are you using?
Brave is what I use right now.
Okay, and Jackie, what browser are you using?
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, because it might be a browser issue, it might be a computer issue, like the type of computer that you're using. I'll ask Chestnut about that.
Okay.
So, and then we can kind of go from there. My first recommendation is to try a different browser. Firefox is pretty secure if you have access to that. I really like Firefox a lot. It's really customizable and it's very secure. They don't share your information like a lot of other browsers do. So usually Firefox is my top recommendation, especially over Internet Explorer or the ones that come standard, Google Chrome, right? Stuff like that. Just an additional download for Mozilla Firefox can go a long way. Yeah, so that's my recommendation, is to try that. And then if that doesn't work, if possible, try it from a different computer. And I know that's not always possible. Sometimes there's only one computer that can be used. I totally get that. But that's why I say, if possible, try from a different computer. And that way it's kind of like troubleshooting, right? If you use a different browser, you get the same problem, then it's not the browser. And then if you use a different computer and you get the same problem, it's not the computer. And so that's just one minor way to troubleshoot. But again, I'll ask Chestnut about that issue and see if that's what might be driving that. And we'll try and kind of get that information out to you for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, Jackie, go ahead.
I have 2 questions. One, when I enter a new client or an existing client into Civicore, after I've done a screen, but they haven't turned in their gain paperwork yet. So I say gain no, but then it requires me to put in a date admitted, if I remember correctly. And so I just go ahead and put in the date that I screened them. And I go back then when I get the gain document and change that admitted date.
Yeah, you should be right. So because the gain is something that happens after they've been admitted to the program, right? After they've been admitted to JBBS. So anybody who is referred, eligible, and does not decline participation, they've been admitted to the program for Civicore's sake. The gain is like once somebody, you can record them as admitted and put in an admission date, right? And then for gain, you can say no, right? And then go back and change that whenever you need to. So the admitted date could just be whenever, you know, if they're referred, they're eligible and they didn't decline, then whenever that happens, they're admitted to JBBS.
Okay.
Yeah.
My second question is, you had said that you want every field answered, regardless if it's don't know or whatever. But in the introduction document that we got on the format, it says that they are able to put either do not know or refuse to answer. And so when I have someone who does not answer a question, I put over to the side that it is not answered. Is that okay, or do I have to send that back to the inmate to have them finish the form?
I would say, you know, you want to know if they're refusing, you want to know if it's refusal or if they just missed it. Because sometimes we've all done this, right? Sometimes you miss a question, you're going through it real quick. So if you don't have any indication about whether that's their purpose of refusing or not, you want to just to get clarification. And maybe you don't have to send the whole thing back to them. Maybe you're just like, hey, question 16 is blank. Are you refusing to answer that question, or did you miss it? Right. Just get that clarification. And if they refuse, then you know. And if not, they're like, oh yeah, I meant to answer it. Then you get that answer and you can complete it that way.
Okay, well, the ones that I've had, they basically put at the top NA. So I'm assuming that they decided they didn't want to answer.
Yeah, that's fine. Whatever your process is, we want to make sure we get as much clarity on this as possible, right? So maybe you tell them when you give them the game, if you don't refuse to answer, that's totally fine. Just make sure you're clear that, hey, refuse to answer this question, right? Or just write refuse next to it. Whatever your process or system is to help ensure that, the easier it is for you and the better it'll be for the data collection, right? Because we don't want a bunch of missing answers because of mistakes. It's okay to have refused or no, but we don't want a bunch of missing data because of error, basically. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So then I guess on top of that, then if you've got a yes or no question, you've got several questions, yes and no, so there's 10 yes or no questions. They answer yes to some and don't circle to 0. I'm assuming that that's a no. Is that okay? Because that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, I think so. And again, you know, the more clarity we have on the front end for them, right? So like, hey, if it's a no, make sure you circle this, right? So it's like the more you can do when you put it in front of people to reduce the amount of those errors, the better. But whatever your process is, if you're fairly certain that people are, you know, okay, they didn't answer yes, so that means a no. That's fine. It's just we want it to be as clear as possible, right? Okay. And we want you to be as informed as possible. And again, it usually starts on the front end. I'm an instructor at university. I teach like freshman students, and oh my gosh, right? Teaching is finding the same way to say the same thing 1,000 different ways. So sometimes, you know, again, it's kind of I find I get better papers when I give them a lot of clarity up front, right? Just so that they know exactly. Another thing that you could do is you could do an example copy, right? And just that way you've circled for yes and no, and you know, they just have to glance at it. You don't have to give them the whole thing, but you can say, here, this is just a test copy, just so you know kind of what it should look like. That might help reduce some of those other errors and get more clarity for you.
Okay. Well, the questions that they're not answering is, you know, like their ethnicity, they're circling what they are, and then they're leaving the other ones blank. Or education. I mean, if they only have 2 things for their education, the rest are blank. I mean,
yeah,
okay.
And again, logic dictates, right? So like if they've only got through high school and they leave everything else blank, then yeah, high school is the highest they go. I just you know, the clearer you are about that, like, hey, if you're answering no, make sure you circle this, right? Or do this if you mean no. If you refuse to answer, right, I'm going to look at this. Anything that you didn't circle, I'm going to consider that as something you refuse to answer. So if that's not the case, make sure you give me a circle there so that I know that you're answering no, right? Or whatever that process may be for you. Just make sure it makes sense to you and that they know what it is so that everybody's on the same page about it.
Okay, I will evaluate how I ask questions.
Yeah, it's one of the like small things here, small change here, right? And again, kind of get the same spiel each time you get it in front of somebody. You know, it'll fix a lot of these problems. And it's an iterative process. You're going to learn as you go. And
Right.
as you pick that up, you add that to your introduction speech, and you'll see fewer and fewer of those issues going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, Chantel.
Hi there. So I work with Jackie, and I know we've kind of gone back and forth on this, but we've had some people where they've turned the gains back in. We do it by paper, and nothing at all is filled out. It's completely blank. And I know at one point I thought on one of these calls, it was mentioned that I know some of the questions can be optional, but the document's required. So I just wanted to get clarification that it should go back to them to complete.
Here's the thing, you want to get that clarification from them. If you get a blank document, you need to ask them, hey, are you refusing to answer this? And if they say, yeah, I refuse, then that's fine. I can't force somebody to do the assessment. It's a voluntary assessment, right?
Okay.
We know, again, for our purposes, we want as much of that as possible. And I don't know, Kelly can speak to this, and Becky might be able to speak to this, but maybe that means that they've declined participation in the JBBS program, right?
Yeah.
If they say, I'm not going to fill out this game, then okay, that's fine. We can't assist you any further. We can't provide
That's
treatment.
exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, there's
Okay.
got to be some, accountability on their end. And if they want to do this, they need to be all in. And there shouldn't really be a reason that they shouldn't be answering questions. That does seem kind of like they possibly are not either being truthful, forthcoming, or maybe this isn't something they want to be involved with. So yeah, we need them to answer the questions. That needs to be explained to them when you give them, or if you're administering it, that needs to be clear.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to be clear, there are, again, if they have a problem with one question, they refuse to answer. It's a different thing when there's one question, they're like, I'm not going to answer this. That's different than saying, I'm going to leave this blank and just turn it back into you. That's where you go, hey, look, if you want to be admitted to the JBBS program, I need you to take this assessment, right? And if not, I'm going to consider you as declining participation.
Looks like we have another question from Olivia.
Sorry. Hi.
I just meant another question. Another question from Olivia. No,
I'm kind of asking a similar clarifying question to Chantel. So I work in the Aspen County Jail. Most of the folks that come in, well, all of the folks that come in are like adults. And there's that one section in the game that's just about school. And I'm not super sure how to be asking 70-year-old people how they were doing when they went to school.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, you do the best you can, right? You're think back, put yourself in those shoes again, right? And think about how you did in school. And if you can't, that's okay, right? We can leave that part blank. And at the end of the day, the assessment is meant to help you develop treatment. And how they acted in school helps inform your treatment, right? But things change, especially for the life course, right? Somebody who's 70 versus when they were 20. Absolutely. So it's more important for people that are younger, right?
Okay.
And that question is a little bit more important for people that are younger. But who knows? I mean, we don't know. You don't want to go into this because who knows? Maybe they went back to school 10 years ago. I just read an article about a 101-year-old getting her master's degree. People go back to school too for different things. So we don't want to assume anything about anybody. Right. And so I would just encourage them, hey, answer this to the best of your ability based on what you can remember. And if it's too far back, then don't worry about it. Just make sure you answer the other questions because we need to develop an effective treatment for you based on your answers to this assessment. Right?
Yeah, that's been the only one that I've struggled with was the schooling one. Everything else, everyone's super open to complete. Even the sex questions, they're yeah, I'll tell you everything.
Totally. And I would just, to whatever extent you can explain that to them, hey, performance in school is part of the equation here. And so do your best to remember that. But if you can't, it's okay. It's just one part of the equation,
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course. Benjamin.
Yeah, a couple of more competency specific questions. So when it says within the clinical episode section, and it's asking basically yes, no for competency restoration involvement, you truly mean actual competency restoration as opposed to someone who's waiting for a bed on the inpatient side or waiting for education on the outpatient side. Is that true?
I'll defer to Kelly and Becky on that one.
So I would actually say that if they are waiting for a bed, they are involved in competency. So if they're waiting for a bed, they are involved in competency. If somebody is waiting for a bed, then they're decompensated enough that they likely cannot participate in JBBS. And that's what we're looking at. That's why competency folks are generally not JBBS folks. If you had prior participation, right? Like prior participation, they did well, they went to the state hospital, they're back, they're on meds, they're doing well. Now they can participate in JBBS. That would be prior to competency involvement. That'd be yes. You could also have kind of those dual folks that have had prior competency involvement in the past, and now they're participating, or they're struggling a little bit, so they're talking with the bridges, folks, and they're participating in JBBS. That's fine. Those would be a yes. But generally, your true comp folks are not going to be JBBS eligible.
So you're saying that question to be answered yes if there's any past history of competency involvement?
If they can tell you yes.
And if not, then there's if you don't know, there's the unknown choice there as well, right? And that's not like, that piece is not the most important data point we have. That's why it's yes, no, or unknown, because it's okay to say unknown. But it's, again, for your benefit, you would want to know if somebody's been involved in competency restoration previously, right? Because that helps you determine treatment.
Sure. So the two follow-up questions. Returned. So how I'm reading the next line is returned from competency restoration. I get that. That is going to be, sort of. Like if it's any history for competency restoration involvement, like you're kind of answering below. But if you were singling out competency restoration involvement as someone returning from outpatient restoration or someone returning from inpatient restoration, like those two don't track quite for me in what is yes, no, or unknown. And you can point me to a resource that I perhaps have not seen to.
Is this a gain assessment or the Civicore?
It's in Civicore.
Okay, so all I'm seeing in Civicore is, were you enrolled in another right underneath screening date and admission date? It's, were you enrolled in another JBBS facility, competency restoration involvement, Bridges program involvement, and then client discharge and clients released from jail. So I only see one question about competency restoration.
Okay, I'm just seeing, I'll dig in. I'm seeing another one. Last question, I promise. I think it's quick.
You're welcome to do that if you want to share your screen and show that, or we can move on to your next question, whatever you'd like to do.
Yeah, I'm honestly just looking at a screenshot right now. On the Bridges involvement, I assume not, but I figured I'd ask the question. Do you care if it's a general mental health Bridges practitioner versus someone, a Bridges liaison who is specifically working with the competency population? So the distinguishing the specific order from the court, does that matter either way within Civicore? Okay, I didn't think so.
No,
Thank you.
nope. Again, like we're really trying to get away. We actually may have some internal discussions and even discuss this question, maybe eliminating it or modifying it, because we don't want you all to get into the weeds with that part, at least as it pertains to JBBS. Those of you that have competency enhancement programs should be communicating with Christina O'Neill, who we communicate with as well. Please just try not to get, like, if you have specific questions about competency, I just don't want you all to get too deep into the weeds with that for the sake of what we're discussing right now. So when there's specific questions about competency, yes, please make sure you reach out to us and also include Christina in those.
So I just wanted to share my screen. This is from the new referral, right? So I said, are they eligible? Yes. Did they decline? No. I got screening date, admission date. And then these are the questions that are on the new referrals. Were you enrolled in JBBS in another facility? Yes, no, unknown. Competency restoration involvement? Yes, no, or unknown. Bridges program involvement, yes, no, or unknown. And then client discharge, client release from jail. So I'll have to, I mean, let me go back. Here's a historical one and let's edit it and see if anything looks different. Okay. So, and here we go. It should be those same questions. So the only time I would think you'd see an additional competency question is if that was something that was on a previous form years ago or something like that. And if that's the case, you know, the only one we care about is the required one, the one that we have, competency, restoration, involvement, yes, no, or unknown. So that's the only one we're going to collect data on. Does that make sense? So if there are additional questions there, yeah, they're not as big.
Historical.
Yeah, exactly. And they shouldn't be required either, right? Whereas these ones are required. So, you know, it should treat those older questions differently. It should say, okay, those aren't required anymore. So you don't have to worry about that. Okay, cool. Other questions? All right, great. So I'm going to do a couple of things, right? Number one, I'm going to reach out to John at Civicore, and we're going to see if we could get an answer to what's going on with these few where data has disappeared, right? And again, I think the best way to do that is for me to meet with him and then circle back with a couple of you and meet with you individually with him so we can see what you're looking at so we know exactly what's going on. Number two, I'm going to talk to Chestnut about how to edit a gain assessment after it's been submitted so that you all know exactly how that process works. And then I'm going to talk to them about the instance of the pages jumping. When you click on yes or no, the page jumps all the way back up to the top. I'm going to ask them if they've had that problem before, kind of what might be driving that. So those are the three things I'm going to take from this meeting and get other answers for you. Is there anything that I missed there that somebody needs me to look into for them, make sure we get you everything you need? Okay, cool.
I think that's good, Alex.
Okay, yeah, and if something comes up, right, like it's sometimes in a meeting, it's hard to remember everything. So if something comes up, send us an email. I think we already talked about this, Becky and Kelly. We're going to have another office hours next week. And so, you know, be on the lookout for that email. We're going to have them a little bit more regularly here for the next couple of weeks so that we get all these kind of issues ironed out, get everybody exactly where they need to be so that this is an easy process for everyone. So just kind of be on the lookout for that. And then in the meantime, if you have questions, let us know and we'll do the best to get those answered either via email or at the next office hours meeting for sure.
So I was just going to say that. Thank you, Alex. So the next meeting, I was kind of messaging everybody on our end and looking at our calendars. We do have a roundtable meeting next Wednesday at 2:00, and that's with our jail folks. So we cannot do next Wednesday at 2:00, but we can do next Wednesday at 1:00. So I'm going to go ahead and send out an invite for next Wednesday at 1:00, and we're going to go ahead and keep these GAIN Civicore office hours weekly for the time being. We just want to make sure we're available for you all to answer these questions and then follow up when there's something that we cannot answer. So if you need to be here, feel free to be here. If you don't need to be here and it's a quick meeting, no worries. That's totally fine. We will be recording these meetings. We will be posting, them to the website as soon as the recording uploads. It just takes a little while sometimes to upload, but we will be posting these to the website. So folks that couldn't be here, or if you can't be here next week, it will be on the website, usually within a day or two. If there is something that we are supposed to talk about in the next meeting and you cannot make it, please feel free to email us and we can follow up with email as well. But we will keep these meetings weekly for now, generally Wednesdays at either 1:00 or 2:00 is, I think, the plan for now. And that's it. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you for your time and your questions. And Alex had one more thing, I think.
Yeah, one last thing before everybody leaves, and like half people have left already. But if you're having this problem with Civicore where data is disappearing, please email me, right, so that I can contact you directly and we can get this problem solved, because losing data that you need is a pretty important thing. So I want to make sure you get addressed. So please email me after this meeting so that I have that in my inbox so I know exactly who to go to. If not, then I'm going to send out a blanket email and we'll explain it next week's GAIN office hours. But I want to make sure I get answers to those people who are having that problem right now as soon as possible. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Everybody take care.
Cool.
Bye-bye.